Today on The Point TV.
If you go on holidays and the obligatory elephant ride comes into play, please don't do it.
We have the control, we have the ability to make choices on a daily basis in the way we spend our money.
You know, statistics came out that one officer in Australia every 6 weeks is suiciding. Yeah, and in America it's one every 18 hours.
Eat naked. So does that mean that we all have to eat naked?
Yes, Sandra, I'd love to see you eating naked.
All this and more on The Point TV.
Hi, I'm Lawson Schaefer. Welcome to The Point TV. In today's society, we are bombarded with videos of adorable animals performing or doing something in a hilarious manner. And yet when confronted about the truths about the atrocities that are happening to these animals in secret, we ignore it and shut it out of our minds. This culture of turning a blind eye highlights several facts. Animal abuse is becoming more relevant and well known in the new age of social media, and animal abuse is scary and confronting. Today we are talking to Valerie Lambard, a crusader for animals, keen on keeping the message going that everyone needs to be involved in the welfare of animals, large and small. Please welcome my guest, Valerie Lambard. So, welcome Valerie.
Thank you, Lawson.
I was just wondering, what do you think the origins of animal cruelty were, and do you think it was always intentional?
Well, I'd actually just like to read something out to you. Yuval Harari said, "Animals are the main victims of history, and the treatment of domesticated animals in industrial farms is perhaps the worst crime in history."
Could you please expand a bit on that?
Well, everybody knows about caged chickens, and everybody understands, or maybe they don't understand, that there might be between 3 and 20 chickens in one cage. And just to give you an idea of a visual on that, this is the amount of room, an A4 piece of paper, that a chicken has for its whole life. And then it's slaughtered. It's really no life at all. And with regard to chickens as well, we have 5-hour-old male chickens that are regarded as a waste product. They are just macerated within 5 hours of being born and then used for fish food.
Wow, goodness. I've heard a lot about geese being force-fed fat so their livers would large and for better pate. Would you know anything about that?
Yes, that's called foie gras, and it is really exactly what happens. The geese are actually just handled, they grab them by the neck, and a tube is forced down their throat and fat is poured in. Some of these animals don't even make it because it really puts a lot of stress on them as far as their body is concerned. And this is all so that people can get a better tasting pate. But not only do they do that, but they also pluck geese and ducks while they're still alive so that you can get down for your quilt cover, for your pillows. And these are all totally unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. And if you've ever noticed, you know where they have landlines sometimes, where you see the sale yards? In those sale yards, if a calf is born during that time, the calf is just literally torn away from its mother and thrown over, and it is left to die.
Goodness.
These are totally unacceptable procedures as far as I'm concerned.
Live export seems to be a huge thing nowadays, and it all seems like it's for the benefit of some businessman or politician, isn't it?
Oh, live export is probably the darkest hour as far as farming is concerned in my eyes. These animals are put onto a ship and they travel for weeks at a time in hot, humid conditions, and they're normally covered in their own faeces and urine, and they're dehydrated and hungry, and as you can imagine, incredibly scared by the time they get to where they're going. And as sad as it may be, the people that get them at the other end do not treat them with any respect whatsoever.
Wow. So what do you think the public can do about animal cruelty?
Well, first of all, they can eat less meat, that's for sure. And then if you start to look at what you're buying, you could definitely buy free range. Then at least you know the chickens are having a decent life. You can buy free range chickens, you can buy free range pork, and you can buy free range cows. This may be a little bit more expensive, but it's worth doing. I know if you went into the supermarket to buy your bacon rations and it was a little baby pig wrapped in cellophane, you would think twice about buying that product.
Goodness, yeah, agreed, absolutely. I could also imagine that fear of being sent to your death, like on these huge trucks to, go to the slaughterhouse. Do the animals by any chance have any sense of where they're heading?
Animals are incredibly intuitive. So I would say to everybody, just sit down and imagine being in that truck and you're drawing closer and closer to the abattoir. The smell of death and the smell of blood is in the air and they can sense that. It would just be the most terrifying experience for any animal. And I just believe that if we want to have a kinder world, we need to be aware of these situations.
Fair enough. A lot of people say though that ethical choices for food, especially meat products, are a bit either costly or virtually impossible or hard to find. So what are some other changes that they could make?
If they don't become vegetarian. So basically you can follow your heart as far as that's concerned. So if you go on holidays and the obligatory elephant ride comes into play, please don't do it. These elephants are put through the most horrendous training, which means that they are taken from their mother. They have 3 legs tied and they use a little hook, and it's called a crushing process. They crush their spirit. They don't feed them. They keep them incredibly dehydrated until the animal is just so scared that it won't do anything against that person. And my own personal experience in Bali with my girlfriends, they all wanted an elephant ride. I couldn't do the elephant ride, but I went to the zoo with them. And being in that zoo, which was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life, next to where the elephant ride was, there's a little cage with monkeys in it. And monkeys are normally very flamboyant creatures. These 3 monkeys were just all lying down in the fetal position, and they were obviously just depressed. You could just feel the sadness in the whole place. It brings me to tears just thinking about it now. I just had to walk away. I just felt that the whole zoo was just a death zone as far as those animals were concerned, and I vowed that I would close the place down. Still working on that.
Fair enough. And since you seem to be a really huge expert on institutions that involve enclosing animals, I wanted to talk to you a bit about aquatic or marine parks. There seems to be a lot of controversy around them. It turns out the animals aren't as happy as they look. Is any of that true?
Well, you're always made to think that the sea lion coming out and the walrus doing all the funny little tricks are happy, but if you really look into it, they're in heavily chlorinated water that burns their skin and can blind them. So really, why is that classed as something that is acceptable to us?
I have absolutely no idea. Now, I have a dog, as I'm sure many people do. I was wondering, is it okay to purchase puppies, and are puppy farms a real thing or just hype?
Puppy farms are very real. People use them for profit only. So the females and the males are constantly being expected to make puppies, for want of a better word. And we had a case in the pound where I volunteer, and it was a beautiful French bulldog that was found on a building site, just dumped. And she had had 4 cesarean births, and her claws were growing into her paw pads, and she was riddled with infection. And they had just dumped her because she couldn't have any more puppies. And the pound paid for her medical expenses. She was fostered for a long time before she was put out for adoption. And now my girlfriend has purchased her, and she has renamed her Angel, and she lives an absolute life of luxury.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm sorry to cut you a bit short here, but we're running out of time at the moment. But thank you very much for coming on board And don't forget to donate to animalsaustralia.org for this very, very beneficial cause. Thank you for watching The Point TV.
If you drink milk, or know anyone who does, you might only have about 3 more years left until fresh milk runs out in Australia. As if long life milk cappuccinos weren't bad enough, farm families are being ripped apart, and city folk, cafe latte sipping shoppers, are being blamed for it. Find out who is blaming you and what you can do about it to defend yourself. Grab a cuppa and let's go find the real solution for this milk crisis with my guest, Australian Dairy Farmer of the Year, Greggy Dennis. Welcome to The Point TV. It's great to have you here.
Good stuff, Susan. Good to be here.
So in the break you were telling me about this book.
Yes, I've got a book, and it's really the essence of the book is about how adversity creates opportunity. So we do farm tours, and we've had many people that have been inspired from that tour experience to go away and build their dream business. So I love to share that.
Now, in my intro, I was talking about the fact that you've said in 3 years I'm going to be having UHT imported milk in my cafe latte. Tell me about that.
Well, it's a frightening reality. I mean, we're finding a situation today in Australia, the fallout rate of farmers is happening so fast, specifically dairy farmers, that we may well not be able to feed ourselves fresh milk produced domestically, locally produced milk. And we are talking in the next 2 to 3 years.
That seems unbelievable. You were saying there's no money in dairy. How can that be?
Well, the flow-on effect is what's hurting the dairy farmer, and what we see at grassroots level is the sale of milk at retail below the cost of production. It's just not flowing back to the farmer. So we're seeing dairy farmers being paid too low a price to keep running a profitable business.
But I'm seeing milk for sale in supermarkets. It seems to be, I don't know, a growing trade of something people buy.
Yeah, it really is running a false economy there, where people have the perception there's plenty of milk still available. And what is happening now, more and more milk is travelling further and further distance. So we're seeing milk coming from interstate. Eventually, milk's evaporating Australia-wide. We'll see milk coming from overseas to fill the market.
And that's why the UHT, or the imported milk?
Yeah, so we see a situation with UHT milk, which is now being called long life milk, and that milk is actually excessively processed to extend shelf life intentionally, and that enables retailers to obviously save on a lot of areas like refrigeration and losses incurred by fresh food. You know, they don't have as much product to go out of date if it has a longer life.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking to me about prices. So talk to me about the prices for milk and the low-priced milk.
Well, we see a lot of marketing spin these days, and we see the retail giants are actually educating the Australian public towards a new price point, and the true value of milk at retail is $4 for a 2 litre bottle.
Like this one, something like this?
That's a 2 litre bottle, and 95% of milk in Australia is sold in a 2 or 3 litre bottle, and there is a true cost of production. We must see the flow of that money back down the chain all the way to the farm gate. We need for retailers to run a profitable business, we need for processors to run a profitable business, but just as importantly are the farmer who's producing the milk.
For sure. There's just 3 words there I need a definition for. You mentioned a processor, so can you explain to me again what a processor is?
The milk processing company, they are the ones who take delivery of the raw milk product that is picked up from the farmer, and they process that. We call it processing, but quite literally that is putting the milk in a bottle ready for retail sale.
Okay, so that's the processor. You also mentioned farm gate.
Farm gate is like a wholesale price paid to the dairy farmer. So we have a wholesale price that's determined by retail value. Downward pressure on retail price point means downward pressure on wholesale price paid to the farmer, and that is what we call farm gate milk price.
Beautiful. Okay, I think it's making more sense to me. It's taken me a while to wrap my head around that, being a city girl. And you said something like fresh food needs a 30 to 40% markup, is that correct?
Yeah, so for retailers to make a genuine profit, they need to make 30 to 40% markup across the food chain, and that should be okay. If we want to buy food through large retail outlets, there's a cost impact, and that 30 to 40% markup reflects the cost involved.
And when you were speaking about loss leaders, can you explain to me how the supermarkets pricing milk cheaply is affecting the farmers?
And again, clever marketing spin. We use the terminology loss leaders because they use a certain product, as we see with milk, to draw people into their store. And in using that product, they're not really generating a loss, even on the cheap milk. Retailers are still making a 5 to 10% markup on cheap milk, but it is a loss leader because they're sacrificing margin that they otherwise make on branded milk. And branded milk is at the right price, by the way. It appears to be expensive next to the cheap milk in the dairy fridge, but it's at the right price.
And what would the right price be for something like a 2 litre? I don't buy this one, by the way. I buy the smaller ones, but for a 2 litre like this, what would it be?
And especially important to understand with mums and dads that have families and they might drink a lot of milk, that's where it starts to look expensive. But true value is $4 for a 2 litre bottle. And obviously if you're drinking a lot of milk every week, that appears to be expensive. But we must protect our local industries. We must make sure that they're financially viable so that we can keep feeding Australians locally produced food.
So what advice would you have for me or for my friends about the fact that 2 to 3 years' time I'll be drinking imported UHT milk in my cafe latte. What advice would you have about people wanting to drink fresh, local Australian milk?
Well, as individuals, we have all the power. We've been confused by marketing campaigns that suggest we don't really have control. As individuals, we have all the control in Australia. We have the control, we have the ability to make choices on a daily basis in the way we spend our money. And in this case, paying the right price for milk will enable the security of that product moving forward.
And the right price would be?
It's $4 for a 2 litre bottle.
Okay, and if somebody couldn't afford to pay $4 for a bottle of milk, what would you recommend?
Don't buy milk. Just don't buy it. We're sending the wrong market signals if we pay less than that for milk.
Well, you've heard it here first on The Point TV. Farmer Greggy Dennis recommending that if you can't pay $4 for your milk to keep fresh Australian milk going, don't buy it. Thank you so much for coming. It's been great.
Thanks,
to meet
Susan.
you.
Good stuff.
I'm about to have a heartfelt conversation with two very special guests regarding post-traumatic stress, Kim Jewell and Di McMath. Kim will share her experience of recovering from trauma and addiction. Today she's a driving force in helping others change beliefs and perceptions surrounding PTSD and addiction through programs that she delivers. Di, a former paramedic of 15 years, has seen some terrible things and created a resilience program for emergency service workers. She's dedicated to help decrease the stigma of mental illness, PTSD and suicide in the industry. Two incredible women who've had first-hand experience from different ends of the spectrum. So Kim, I can't imagine growing up in a family of abuse that led you to addiction. Today, I see here an incredible woman sitting beside me. Tell me a little bit of your former life.
Well, Jan, I'm the sixth child of 10 children from a very volatile family. By the time I was 7 years old, I suffered sexual abuse. I was a sensitive child, bullied at school. I had learning difficulties. At 14, I turned to drugs and alcohol as a way of coping with my anxiety. I quickly went down the track of addiction very fast, and at 17, my father said to me I needed to clean up or to move out, and I chose to move out. So that led to another 7 years of addiction. At 24, my dad passed away suddenly, and my dad was my hero. And so even though we had a love-hate relationship, I always knew he'd be there for me, and my world just spiraled out of control. My family didn't want to have anything to do with me. I just went to a very, very dark place. And it took another 2 years before I was able to make any changes.
So what do you think that was that moment that led you to making those changes?
Well, after a breakup, I was on a scuba diving trip, and I decided to end my life. And when they were pulling me out of the water and I was coming back to consciousness, and I was lost. And in that moment, I just heard this voice in my head saying to me, maybe, just maybe, if I put the drugs and alcohol down long enough, I'd figure out why my life was such a mess. And that was the moment that I knew things had to change. I didn't know how, but I knew they had to change.
And change you did. Di, a paramedic for 15 years. You certainly must have experienced some really challenging moments as well as a joy of the job. Very rewarding, I imagine. Tell me what you loved about the job, and tell me what led you to resign from the job.
Oh, look, Jan, I loved so much about the job. And to be honest, I'd probably still be doing it if you could pick and choose the jobs, but you can't. I loved being able to help people on their worst days. And I loved the friendships, the camaraderie within the service. It's just like family. But I think the beginning of the end for me was when a close friend and colleague, he passed away suddenly, and it really rocked my world. You know? And over the next few years, I felt like I was going to funerals of people that their lives were cut short, and the last one being my mum. 16. She passed away 16 days after she was diagnosed with a brain tumour.
Oh, incredible.
And I was with her when she died. And I think it was just reality hit that I could potentially go to a job one day and it's someone that I know, so I didn't want to do that anymore.
It would seem like personal trauma in both of your lives it was a catalyst for change. So, Kim, after your father's death, you went down a pathway of interventions. Can you tell us about some of the interventions that led you to recovery?
Certainly. I started with the 12-step programs, and then while I was doing 12-step programs, I went to psychologists and psychiatrists and various counselors, and they all told me what to do to get better, but not how to do it. And what I noticed was, even though I wasn't using drugs or drinking anymore, my life was still spiraling with the anxiety and all the trauma. And I didn't know what to do. It was starting to impact my marriage. It impacted how I was parenting my children. Then, 11 years into my recovery, my brother passed away. And my brother was my hero. He helped me get clean from drugs and alcohol. He had contracted HIV and then lung cancer. So when he died, I found myself curled up in a corner on the floor, unable to get up, unable to cope. And that was a moment that I realized, you know what, I have to find a different way.
Thank you. And Di, when you finally resigned from being a paramedic, you wrote a blog.
Yeah.
And your blog was, unless you've been there, you wouldn't understand. A paramedic's farewell to the job. Now, that blog had over 300,000 views. Tell me a little bit about some of the comments.
Oh, look, it blew me away, the response to it. It was like ripping off a Band-Aid and exposing a wound that so many others had as well. I was getting emails and messages from all around the world saying things like, thank you for writing this. It's like you've been reading my mind. And so it was really a light bulb moment. I thought, wow, there's really an issue here. And, you know, statistics came out that one officer in Australia every 6 weeks is suiciding. Yeah, and in America it's 1 every 18 hours.
Oh, incredible.
So I thought, I need to do something about this. Why don't I put my coaching experience with my paramedic experience and put them together, and that's when I came up with the 000 Resilience Program. So it's a 2-day workshop, and it's facilitated by current and former officers, and it provides real and relevant coping strategies so that when they're faced with challenges in their personal and their professional life, that they can better mentally cope.
Sounds amazing. And so, Kim, your journey from childhood abuse and trauma to addiction, and then your own recovery, that's led you to be an advocate for change for people who've led similar pathways. Tell me a little of that.
Well, for me, I didn't think there was a way out. And what I did was I studied all these alternative different methods. And it wasn't until I found out how the mind works and how it works in relation to trauma that I started to get some relief from the trauma and found coping skills that were different from what I'd known. So for me, it's about letting people know that trauma is not a life sentence. There is a way out.
So taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two very passionate women, two incredible women who've turned their adversity into an advantage. And if I could use Di's words, if you haven't been there, you wouldn't understand. My two guests today truly understand.
Welcome to The Point TV. We are all aware how vital good health and fitness are to sustaining a productive life. But how many of us struggle with diets and don't have time to commit to a strict fitness regime? Today we will be speaking with Chantal Girardi, who has also faced these issues. Chantal is a wife, mother of 3, businesswoman and fitness guru who struggled to fit everything into her busy life. As a result, she has developed an achievable health and fitness program designed to fit anyone's lifestyle. Chantal wants us to eat naked. Well, what does that mean exactly? Let's find out. Chantal, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Sandra.
Now, health and fitness wasn't always part of your lifestyle. What motivated you to get into the health and fitness industry?
Yes, you're very right, Sandra. And at school, I was the fat kid. I was called Fatty Boom Boom. I was often bullied. I was uncomfortable. I was the kid that used to get out of doing fitness activities. I had no understanding of health at all. And when I got to my 20s, the doctors suggested that I go on high blood pressure or cholesterol medication. And that was the same route that my family had gone down, my mother's, my brothers, my sisters. So I kind of decided that that's not the route that I wanted to go down, that I needed to do something that was different.
Right. So was this change in lifestyle difficult?
It wasn't easy in saying that I decided to give up my career as a school teacher and become a personal trainer. However, I kind of went to the other extreme side of it, where I started to over-exercise up to 13 hours a week, as well as experiment with diets, diet pills, supplements and shakes, and it became a huge unhealthy habit that I started to go into.
Right. So how did you formulate a more achievable program?
When I got married in my late 20s, I fell pregnant with identical twin girls, and being identical twin pregnancy, it was obviously a high-risk pregnancy. So I had to be a lot more careful with the type of exercise that I did, as well as, I couldn't go on extreme diets. It would have been unhealthy. Yeah. So I needed to come up with something that was going to be a little bit more achievable for me to do, where I could still maintain my health and my fitness, but still be a mom and, still be a wife. I also went back to school teaching, so I didn't have the time. So I needed to create sort of something that I could do where I could fit it all in.
Very busy woman. So what makes this program different from others?
I think that we're all busy. We've all got stuff going on. We also have got hereditary predispositions to certain things like diabetes, cholesterol. You know, a lot of us sit down during the day. Some of us are more active like tradies. So depending on who you are, this program is suited to help you see where you're at and how can we make improvements. It teaches you the principles of health, wellness and fitness, and then looks at what steps can we take to make it achievable for you and fit it into your lifestyle. So if you're a nurse, being able to give you the skills where you can pick up your clients and put them in and out of bed. If you're a man over 40, get your testosterone levels back up so that you can please your partner again. If you're going into your teens like my twins are now, putting them onto natural sort of premenstrual medication and just teaching them some mindfulness techniques, or teaching people how to read food labels. You know, many families to read food labels and to meal plan and pack healthy lunch boxes. So yes, it can be suited to anyone.
Well, it sounds like it has a lot to do with you teaching people to think differently. And you mentioned wellness. That's something you don't hear with many fitness programs. So what exactly does wellness entail?
Well, with the journey that I went down, I found that that was a huge component that was often lacking in other people's programs. Your self-image, how you feel about yourself, the things that you say to yourself, your self-belief, your self-talk. These are all things that are going to affect your attitude towards exercise and your attitude towards health. So wellness relates to your personal responsibility, you taking personal responsibility for your own health and wellness, you making that decision and you following through with it. So if we can develop those skills, you're more likely to stay on track and to achieve your goals.
Right, that sounds very interesting. So is it suitable for everyone?
Yes, definitely.
Wonderful. Now, you've called this program Eat Naked. So does that mean that we all have to eat naked?
Yes, Sandra, I'd love to see you eating naked. The first thing my mother did was say, "What, really?" And my twin girls said, "Mom, come on." But what it refers to is basically unwrapping your beliefs about health, wellness and fitness. So whatever you believe about exercise and health and fitness, whatever you've heard or believe, it's about unwrapping all those ideas, getting back to the basics, looking at the principles and then finding your unique balance. Because if it excites you, you're more likely to do it.
Yes, that's definitely true. You do need something to motivate you, I believe, when you go into anything like this. Is there anything that makes the program special?
Yes, it is. I had a bit of an issue with the whole online thing because I wanted to be able to have contact with people so that I could talk to them or communicate with them and give them my help. Also get outside of their own heads, because when you're in your own head, it can sometimes be a little bit too confronting. Mm-hmm. So we actually have a private Facebook group where I can help people through the process. So not only do they get their online guideline to what they need to be doing, but they also get my assistance. So we can post pictures of our food porn, and talk about meals, get meal ideas, get recipe ideas, and just give each other support in that group and say, look, I'm really struggling with my meal prep, I'm really struggling with fitting in exercise, what have you done? How can we help each other? So it's just getting that community going.
Right, so there's a nice support base there to work with, and it's one of the few times that you're going to be allowed to post pictures of your meals on Facebook. That's great. So you mentioned online, so obviously is there a website that people can go to find out more information if they're interested?
Yes, Sandra, they can go to www.thefithub.com.au. They can find me there, or they can click on the Eat Naked tab. As I said, it's an online program, however you will have my support the whole way through.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chantel. It's been wonderful and very informative. This is Sandra Harmon for The Point TV, and remember to eat naked.